Throughout history, there have been countless unexplainable stories, events, and moments captured on audio. These horrifying tapes were archived, never to be heard again. Until now. These are the tapes of trepidation. Tape number 9. The Cold. It begins with a cold. It starts off mildly. Your nose starts running. It gets harder and harder to pronounce words. You take a few days off due to the fever and congestion in your head. Finally, you start going to work again, sure that the cold is making its way from your body. But it begins with a cold. It isn't apparent at first. You think it's because of the cold that when all is silent, you hear random words being whispered right behind you. No. In front. No. In your ear. Dinner. Mom.
Sonny.
Dad. Car. But it begins with a cold. You start going more and more to the doctors. You notice more people than usual, and that they all cringe in pain as one person walks in. All with runny noses, swollen heads, baggy eyes, open, slimed mouths. You go in. The doctor says the same thing every time. Take this medicine twice daily. Keep away from children. Rest well. Rest well. Rest well. But it starts from a cold. Because it's too late once the cold sets in. The voices in your head get louder and louder. The boss doesn't notice that you're gone because he's been sent to the asylum for unknown reasons. Sniffling about thoughts and how it's the end of the world. The Chinese vendor across the street doesn't notice you're in all the time because he's also upstairs in his cramped apartment wasting what's the last day of his life watching crappy MTV shows because that's the only channel his antenna receives due to the thunderstorm 37 years ago. He's been here that long. But most importantly, you don't notice that you're gone from work. You drive in every day, but it seems like you've been in for days when you drive in. The calendars are there to prove it. Your boss got them from a failed business venture he tried when he was fresh out of college. It was called 365 Ideas a Year. And it was 365 post-it notes with inspirational messages on them. You wonder how he even got the idea. He just tries to forget and move on. The bottle with the pills say rest well. You rest well. You rest too well. Because the next time you wake up, you notice that your Zimbabwean plumber is gone, but you haven't called him in since last February 20th because your roof has leaked exactly 27.6 millimeters of a mixed solution of mercury water, which was kind of dumb because mercury kills you. That's what David Kelling, Mr. Kelling, told you in 7th grade. You hear the voices more. The Spanish pizza delivery guy next door watches his music videos. You can hear them clearer. And you understand Spanish. Rest well. Rest well, rest well, rest well. It begins with a cold. There's not a day in his life that he doesn't regret divorcing his wife. The voices are clearer now. Lisa, don't leave me. All hail Mao Zedong. 365 sounds like a great idea for a business venture. Carl, don't you think it sounds like a great idea? We're going to be millionaires. Now the voices are clear. They happen. They come more frequently. You can't stop it. It's like the Hoover Dam broke open and Gorbachev all over again telling himself to tear down this wall. Tear down this wall. Rest well. Now you sit on your IKEA sofa going through each step over and over while people outside honk their Ford 2013 model horns over and over, trying to get their voices out of their head because they want that raise. You don't know what's happening, but by the next week, the voices are almost constant. You go to the clinic, writhing in pain as you pass by an LGBT rights parade, voices of various people banging in your head. But it's not the same voices at the radio that Dan Gerald hosts on 67.1 FM every Sunday morning. You don't know what's happening, but the math equations that have always bothered you are ringing in your head now. A dog comes up to you and it speaks English to you. That hot dog vendor hates you for that beeping. The car in front of you, the driver, is female. Her name is Sarah Smithson. She is scared because everyone around her is honking their horns. But somehow, you make it to the clinic. Somehow you think all these voices, all of this truth is rushing through your head because of that cold a week ago. But that thought is replaced by the ones that tell you that there's a worm on Mars fucking another one, and they can't enjoy it because they're worms. And the one that tells you that missing guy that Hallie Baker Anchor told you about 21 days ago is drifting in a river. It's night where he is, so his pulse is 0 and his body temp is about 30 below Celsius. Too many thoughts. Another guy with a runny nose stumbles into the clinics whilst that cheap Cambodian chime rings for the 4,701st time. The clinic should celebrate. 4,701 chimes. The door closes. His name is Jack Haggerty. He has had this cold for exactly 432,010,891 seconds. 432,010,892 seconds. In another reality, you're eating a hot dog while accessing the vast memories of the hot dog guy. In another, you are already dead. In another, you go to work like normal. Finally, there's one reality where the guy just experienced his 432,010,893rd second of his life. The door opens, the doctor walks in, you are next, your head yells out in pain as a dozen more thoughts enter your head. Rest well. Lie down. Rest well. It begins with a cold. You don't even feel it when the door closes, and your brain, having just held the entirety of 5 human minds for 1 week and then holding 105 minds of homosexual protesters to holding the 36 patients' minds of the clinic, to holding just the one mind of the doctor collapses onto itself, its neurons and microscopic axons having given up the sheer stress of doing a job that it is just not used to. You don't feel it when your skull hits the table and your cranium, softened by a month of brain inflammation, cracks open. You don't feel it when your skin, having its nerves and skin cells stretched by the almost nonstop flow of blood for 31 days of January, explodes. You don't feel it when the police come and poke at the massive red that was once your brain. The doctor having pissed himself at the sight of one of his patients just having his head blown up. But this is just the start. Your consciousness is awake. You don't feel it. You know it. You know that the final thought passing through your head before you died was the doctor's name. You don't know that you're going to know everything. Every little detail. And you can't tell it to anyone. Not in any dimension. Not in the past, the future, the present, and everything in between. Rest well. Rest well. Just know it starts with a cold. This has been tape number 9 by the Tapes of Trepidation Horror Narration Podcast. The Cold was written by user 41488P and was originally posted on the Creepypasta Wiki. Narration, production, and sound design was by TJ Hodder. Music and additional effects for this episode were provided by EchoSFX.com and PurplePlanetMusic.com, with a link to both in the description of this episode. The Tapes of Trepidation theme was written by the incredible J.M. Scherf. All logos, banners, overlays, and graphic design work was provided by the talented Jason Reese from Jaybird Digital Arts. If you would like to go the extra mile in supporting the show, feel free to follow us on social media. We have Facebook and Instagram, both under Tapes of Trepidation Podcast. And if you want to go that little bit further, consider joining the Tapes of Trepidation Patreon for exclusive bonus narrations and access to our behind-the-scenes podcast, in which we do a deep dive on every single episode of Tapes of Trepidation within the archive. On top of access to that content, you will also get a shout-out on every single episode of Tapes of Trepidation, just like my current patrons. We have the OG patron, Kelly Sisson, Neil Skrupa of Neurotic Voice, Doozer Pendon, Ronan Komori, and Eric Phones. I can't thank you guys enough for all the support at this point in the podcast. It truly means the world to me, and I appreciate you guys so very much. Much more to come for Patreon. If you have a story you would like to submit, or a question regarding the show, please contact us at tapesoftrepidationpodcast@gmail.com. All content used on Tapes of Trepidation is either original, used with permission, or is available under Creative Commons license. All rights reserved, unless otherwise stated. This podcast and its content may not be redistributed or rebroadcasted without the express written consent of Tapes of Trepidation and the story's author. Thank you so much for listening.